Hello everyone. Here is a short video to just go over a few things that may help you with the week 3 assignment. So for this assignment, you're going to consider in more detail what kind of clinical experience you want your students to have. Think about having the same parameters, the same students, the same course as you had last week. And last week you were supposed to plug in some hours for when you would do your clinicals. In this week, you'll have an option to reconsider that if after you've done some of your reading, you think that you didn't make the best choice. I don't know that there is a best choice, and a lot of times we are dependent on what the clinical sites will allow us, but usually for this kind of a course, you could have 6 hours a day, 8, 10, 12. It really depends on a lot of things, but I just want you to further discuss in this assignment why you're making some of the decisions. I want you to make your own choices initially, and then also to look for best practices based on your reading. Again, you may have a gut feeling of how you would do something, or maybe you've done it in the past. That's how you went through school, but maybe that's not best practice. So I want to see both. I want to see your thinking and your decisions, but I also want to see that you can back that up. So you'll see that the assignment is broken down into a couple of sections. The first one is just some general decisions that you need to make. And these are the kinds of things you would have to decide if you were teaching a course. You'd have to know what your ratio is going to be between your faculty and students. Last week, I think I said you had a 6-to-1 ratio, but is that ideal? Is that, you know, too many students, not enough students? What's the range of optimal for this course? And how many hours per day are you going to schedule? And how are you going to orient your students to the unit? And then I want you to break it down even more and say, uh, for a specific clinical day, what would that look like? When are you going to make your assignments? Are you going to make them ahead of time? Are you going to make them in the morning when you get there? What type of preparation do you want the students to come with? What kind of things are you going to have them doing during the day? And again, that will change as it goes through the semester, but just give me a general idea of how you would envision this day going. And then, do you hold both pre and post conferences, one or the other? It's your decision based on, again, how you have thought it through and what it says in your resources. But explain if you are going to do either, why you are or why not. And then I want you to talk about your role. So what are you going to be doing as the clinical instructor? What do you think you should actually be physically doing throughout the day? I've heard some students complain at times that instructors are not hands-on enough, that they sit in a conference room and are just there if you need them. And then others say their instructors were too hands-on. They were, watching them every minute. So considering that this is a fundamentals type course, what do you think your role is? How are you going to keep track of what the students are doing throughout the semester? How are you going to find a balance between coaching them, these very early beginning students, and evaluating them? So you can see the kinds of questions here that I want you to address. And then at the very end, this is not exactly related to the clinical day or that exercise, but I do want you to take some time to think about what your strengths and weaknesses are at this point with respect to being an effective clinical instructor. That's pretty self-explanatory. So there are a couple of ways that you can do this. There is a worksheet that you can use. I mean, I want you to use the worksheet, but you can format it a couple of ways. Here's the most important thing. I want to see what you think are your best decisions. What would you do and why? But then I also want sources. I want references. I want you to have looked up whether or not that's a good idea and how you might um, you might revise that. So there's two ways that you could do that. You could simply put the question, I want you to leave the questions from the worksheet, tell me what you would do, and then cite your sources underneath it. And this is an example that you can go back and look at. Because here I've said I would schedule 12-hour days because, and in this case, this is not, I used an example that was not your fundamentals course, just so that it would be a little different. But if I had students in a capstone clinical, I would say I would do 12-hour days in that case because they're about to graduate and they need to know as close as possible what their um, their job's going to be, what it's going to look like. And then I found a source underneath it where it validates my decision in that respect. So you can do it that way where you're doing question, what you would do, what your thoughts are, and then what your source is for all of those decisions. Another way you could do it, if you want to be really clear in your mind and make sure I can see all those pieces, is that you can put the question in more of a table type of thing, your answer, and then your documentation. And that way you'll know where the holes are. You'll know, have you answered every question? Have you supported your decisions? And it's just kind of a nice, neat way that you could also do that. I don't have a preference. I just want to be able to see that you've addressed everything. So in other words, I'm not looking for a term paper type look to this. I want more of the question and answer and documentation look to it. And I think that's it. So if you have any questions as you go through the week, feel free to shoot me a text or give me a call.